It says the predictability for industry versus the predictability for the residents. The House and Senate bills both argue for predictability for the industry as they expand in Pennsylvania. However, predictability for residents has been a bedrock of municipal planning and was here long before the industry came to town. Mr. Shields just addressed some of that, and at this point I'd open it up to the panel to ask the panel if anybody would like to comment on that issue.
I'll make a couple comments. Particularly in Peters Township's case, we're 22,000 people in a community that is probably 2/3 developed and 1/3 not developed. We're a little different than some of the other communities along the way, in that we have to deal with the concerns of both of those. And the predictability issue for us is that we have a comprehensive plan that we've spent a lot of time doing 10 years ago. We're just beginning the process of redoing our comprehensive plan. And predictability is what you want to achieve from a comprehensive plan. You want to know where you're going and how you're going to get there. Think about this issue, that in the eastern end of our township, where most of our undeveloped property is, there's a lot of large farm tracts. Suppose that we don't have the protection of local zoning, and that somebody, one of these companies, decides they're going to come and put a pipeline from point A to point B, and they go and get easements from the property owners, and all of a sudden you realize that you've got 500 or 1,000 acres of property that all of a sudden is cut off from development. It can't be developed because there's an easement that precludes you from getting to the road or whatever. That's a predictability issue. It's big on our minds. And Mr. Shields asked what the large hospitals and educational institutions in Pittsburgh have to present a strategic plan for where they're going in the next 10 years or so, a footprint plan. I would ask that that maybe the gas industry do the same thing for us. Where are you going? Where are your pipelines going? Where are your compressor stations going? Where are the processing plants going? Where do you see drill pads? I mean, a drill pad has to be in a place that is conducive to drilling. They shale fracture in a particular direction, so these guys want to locate a pad in a way that they can drill their horizontals in particular directions. And you could pretty much predict, knowing the seismology of an area, where the good places for drilling are. In Peters Township, we spent 2.5 years putting together a drilling ordinance. It's how would I term this? It's been a lively discussion in the township about exactly how this was going to happen, but it's concluded, and we have what we think is a very stringent ordinance. We went with what we call a mineral extraction overlay district, and we said here are some 40-acre plots of land or more that in the township would be probably areas that would lend themselves to drilling without affecting residential areas. We thought anyhow, we achieved some predictability. We thought that we could predict where this was going, and we could predict how we would move forward in the future. With this preemption of our ordinance, we have no idea. I mean, there are smaller pieces of land scattered throughout the residential areas of our township, which I guess in theory you could put a drill site on them. Brian showed a picture of a pond within 500 feet, was it, of a house. Our 40-acre plan is to predict that won't happen in our township. But without the law that we have, how do we know? We're elected officials. We have talked to our elected officials. We have not gotten any communication the other way, other than our own official. And as was just said, every 2 years we have the option as citizens to decide who goes to Harrisburg to represent us in the House. And every 6 years we have the option of deciding who goes to represent us in the Senate. I think we need to make abundantly clear to the people that are there that our decision as to who goes and who doesn't go is predicated on who cares about our townships.
Yeah.
Wondering if you had that slide of the pipeline that goes across Pennsylvania. I think a lot of people in the eastern part of the state, at some point we can get to that.
Yeah, I'm about to go to that right now. Anybody else from the council?
I think predictability, if somebody moves into a residential neighborhood or has a business, a restaurant, whatever business that they're in, they need predictability that they're living in a residential area. If the gas industry is allowed to come and put a drill site 500 feet from your home, or a frac pond, or a compressor station, and turn those areas into basically industrial areas, there's no predictability for the people that live in our communities. And that's one of my biggest issues, is there's no predictability for the people that are there right now. And if this bill passes, I don't know what we would be doing in municipal government. Because quite honestly, we would have almost no control over the development in our communities. It would drive away certain residential uses, commercial uses, and we would have no control over the industrial uses that would take their place.
On the screen are expansion plans for just one company currently operating in Pennsylvania. As you can see, the plans are not limited just to western Pennsylvania or the north-central part of the state. In addition to wells, processing facilities, and compressor stations, the state is on the verge of becoming bombarded with pipeline expansion that will affect us all. One area that stands out on there would be Susquehanna County. If you take a look at Susquehanna County, the yellow represents the existing, the green shows proposed expansion. The eastern half of the state is not exempt from this either. Take a look at the pipelines running through the Philadelphia area all the way up to New York City. The Atlantic Access Line going right across the southern part of Pennsylvania, right across the mountains, all the way to the eastern half of the state. So, to those in here and those around the state who think that this House and Senate bill don't apply to you, ask yourself this. This is one of about 80 companies operating in Pennsylvania. What if they all have similar plans? Imagine that map. Imagine that map overlaid 80 times. Because as we talked about earlier, the infrastructure is not being coordinated between companies. So you multiply that by 80 times and see what Pennsylvania is going to look like in just a couple of short years. So, will you have the ability to protect your communities? If the current language in House Bill 1950 and Senate Bill 1100 remain, the answer is obviously no. So, in conclusion to this portion of the program, I'm going to go ahead and put the slide up, or the screen up. We're urging local government officials to contact their state representatives and senators before they vote on this bill, which we've heard maybe as early as tomorrow. We're going to send a unified message from tonight's meeting in opposition to preemption of our local zoning and land use authority. And let me just ask by a show of hands, who in here would like to be preempted? Anybody in here? Okay, I just want to make sure, because I want to make sure that message goes out loud and clear to Harrisburg that we don't want preemption. Reach out to your counterparts across the state. They may not think they're affected by this now, but as the slide shows, they will be very soon.
You're voting tomorrow.
I know they are. Until Governor Corbett, state senators, and state reps should sit down with municipal officials from Western PA to create sensible legislation that takes into account all aspects of the gas and oil industry and protect local municipalities' rights to protect their residents. And we're going to put this out, and hopefully the media is picking up on this, because that's what we want out in the media tonight, is that until such a meeting can be arranged, don't vote on the bill. Table it until you come and talk to the local officials whose lives and the residents whose lives you're going to impact by passing these bills. So with that, we are going to open it up to Q&A and to comments from the municipal officials or the representatives that are in attendance. And we'll wrap up just after that. So anybody who would like to step up and make a comment, we'll have you step up to the microphone. I'm going to spin this back around so that you're facing up front here. And we appreciate it.
Question, I'm sorry. Did you just take a vote of the people here to send that message to the state reps and senators?
Well, I believe that when people signed in, they had the option of selecting whether or not they were in agreement to send a notice of opposition, and that was part of our intention of tonight's meeting.
Okay.
So, if there's any municipal official who would like to step up, please feel free. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Marcellus Shale. I'm Chief of Staff for State Representative Courts from the Mon Valley. First off, I want to tell you that Representative Courts will not be voting for 1150. Secondly, and most important, I receive most of the mail that comes through to the representative, either email or snail mail. And three hot-button issues. One, of course, is vouchers. And the other that comes across to us most often is about the roads and bridges and how we're going to fund the maintenance of them. But I have to tell you, although we get emails and mail from all across the state of Pennsylvania, our office is hearing very little from either municipal officials or citizens about this issue. I can tell you that the voucher issue was going to be pushed and done yesterday or the day before, but because the Republican caucus received so much opposition to it through mail, through correspondence, it's been held up. They just can't corral their people to get the vote to pass the voucher issue. Same thing can be true with this particular issue, but you've got to get out there, you've got to get your municipalities to pass resolutions and get them up to the House, and you've got to get your citizens to email or mail these representatives. They do hear you, but I'm telling you right now, we're not hearing. Our office, and I would have to bet the majority of the offices across the state of Pennsylvania, are not hearing from the citizens or the municipalities the way we should be hearing about this issue. This is the first major meeting that I've been sent to, or the representative would have came to if he was in Harrisburg today, about this issue. There needs to be more of this. I have to applaud you for what you're doing. Thank you.
Mark, let me jump in there 1 second. Nick from Representative Jesse White's office came with me tonight too, and much like your boss, Representative White's in Harrisburg. But I want to say one thing in opposition to what you just said. We in Washington County hear about it every day, and that's a good thing. That's because people like Andy Schrader, Brian, Rich from our local areas are on us every day. And Representative White, much like Representative Courts, did not vote for 1950. That language is in there. Should have come up for a vote tomorrow, next week. Not going to vote for it either. But the call to action is urgent. We're going to have a call to action tonight, Rich. You touched on that. We have to do it now. We have to do it soon. You have to get on the phone tomorrow, contact the representatives and senators, and let them know that you're out there, you're watching their votes. Let them know what you think.
How many people are calling and saying that they want this? Is it just the industry call?
We get robocalls a couple times a week. We don't know necessarily who's behind the robocalls. You could put two and two together, though, I guess.
So
there is a faction
so we
out
do
there.
have the majority now.
What's that, I'm sorry?
We do have the majority of people calling into these two offices saying that it's not a popular proposal.
Sure, I mean, I think in our
Well,
district...
you just said that you want us to come out. Now you're saying we're in the majority.
Well, I can tell you that any emails or any correspondence we're receiving, the overwhelming majority, but it's not much that we're receiving, the overwhelming majority is against the bill.
Okay, we've done our job.
But again, if I get 100 emails about vouchers, I get 2 on...
Well, that's apples and oranges. Those could be union people who are organized. This movement is not that organized. We don't have a big budget like
Let me kind of interject here, because Andy Schrader and I have talked to quite a few of our senators and state representatives, and we've talked to them personally. We haven't talked to the staff, and I've also talked to quite a few of them on the phone. They will listen, but what we find is they're absolutely clueless about the issues.
Exactly right.
Well, no, Jesse White, no, I mean the ones that we've talked to that actually support this legislation. I'll be clear on that. Because Jesse White has been extremely supportive of local regs, the communities, and we understand it. There's a lot of other ones in our area that are against this legislation. But the ones that voted for it really are clueless about what's in the bills, what they could do, and the issues that they don't address. We spoke to 2 of our senators, and I will tell you that one of them went back to Harrisburg and talked to the leader in the Senate and relayed some of what we told him, because it got back to me through another senator's office that he had brought these issues up. But what we need to do, municipal officials, managers, you need to pick up the telephone. The emails are fine, but you need to actually call our representatives, call the senators, get them on the phone, and make them aware of our positions. That face-to-face contact, I think, is the best thing that we can do, and we have to do it right away. But like I said, a lot of the reps in this area, especially in the suburban communities, are clueless about what they're voting for. And the media is in no fault of their own, that this has really been portrayed as a shale impact fee legislation, and that preemption has just been kind of thrown in there at the end. So that's what they view it as, the impact fee and not the preemption. But you need to get on the telephone and you need to call. And as municipal officials, you'll get through to them. They will call you back. You just need to make the effort.
I would also like to note that our representative in Peters Township, John Mark, has been very much involved in this and has been very supportive of us and has voted no consistently. He's also offered a number of amendments to the bill, which would move the bill closer to what would help us, which have all been stripped from the bill or voted down by numbers of people. You know, and one of the things that I think we also need to think about is that as we're calling our officials, I think that there are many officials on the eastern side of the state who don't see this as impacting them. It's a numeric issue. There's a bunch of representatives down there that don't see this as an impact, and they're very happy to say, hey, you know, if you want our support on this, you know, great, we'll go along with us on something else that affects Philadelphia or whatever. And what they don't understand, and they don't have to understand drilling if you're sitting in Chester County, but what you do have to understand is that if an industry can take away your local rights on this issue, if they can preempt your zoning laws on this, what comes next? They need to get into that. And that's what we call a representative someplace else.
One last thing, if I may, I don't want to open up a can of worms here because it really wasn't touched on today. But not all of them, most of the representatives and senators we've spoken with who voted in favor of these bills, I'll ask the question, what did they hide behind or fall behind? PSATs. The PSATs endorsement. So I would say, as a... You won't even answer the phone. To a room full of municipal officials, to a room full of municipal officials, and I know many of you have spoken with your PSATs representatives, Dave, make sure that he or the organization is on your side. There's been a lot of emails flying back and forth. I know you were on a lot of them, but there's some real confusion, and I'll just tell you, a lot of the senators, representatives, again, have used that as their very first talking point for why they voted for the bill. So just keep that in mind.
Just one more point on that. Tomorrow is probably the last session day until after the holidays into January. So if you can get to these people right away, you may be able to stop this and have more time to work on pushing back this foolish legislation. Tomorrow is probably the last voting day.
I just want to say something here, that as elected officials, one of the things that has come up in meetings that we've heard from our elected officials in Butler was that when they attended the meetings run by the industry in Penn State, that they were told that there was nothing they could do. This was something that they could not be effective about, that they could not pass ordinances or legislation that would regulate this industry. What we need to realize is that this is a power grab, and what they're doing is they're taking away your power to regulate, to zone, and to create the character of your township. This is something that you all need to realize, because if you don't act now, what's going to happen is something that you'll be paying for in the future. So, I just need to tell you that we really need to come together and organize to really defeat this.
Just to quick housekeeping rule. While we do appreciate the public, and of course, you folks are the ones that are most affected by this, what we're looking for tonight is I'm looking, and the panel is looking, and the message we're trying to send out is from municipal officials. So what I'd really like to see is municipal officials step up here. And before I do that, I do want to point out one additional thing. When the invitation went out for this meeting, invitation was sent to every member of the executive board, as well as the leaders of all the state municipal associations. I don't believe any of those, I think there are a couple of executive board members in-house tonight, but I don't believe any of the leaders of any of the state...
And I never received an invoice. I'm on the executive board, I didn't receive it.
Okay. I know it went out to PSATs, to those folks. It went out to the borough's administration, the city municipalities group as well. And I apologize if you didn't get it. Obviously, though, you found out about it and you're here, so that's important to us. At this time, again, any municipal official who would like to step up.
My name's Eve Goodman. I'm council-elect for Wilkinsburg Council. I'm kind of standing here listening incredulously that the state can do something that seems so unconstitutional. And although I'd really like to pass the floor over, I think his name's Jules Lavelle, is that correct? And I really would like you to speak on if this is even constitutional. And with all due respect, Mr. Shields, waiting 2 years to vote somebody out is too long. Or, next spring.
I hear you.
Next spring. So, is that all right?
Wait, excuse me. Jules is going to talk about the constitutional issue for just a second. That's what Eve's question was.
This, hopefully you could stop this from happening, but it looks like it's going to happen. And so the question is, what do we do about it?
It's not going to happen if we do something.
My name is Jules Lavelle. I'm a professor of constitutional law at the University of Pittsburgh Law School, and I was involved in the Pittsburgh statute with Councilman Shields, and I was involved in a number of cases involving these statutes. And the real problem we have in Pennsylvania here is that this doctrine of preemption is well embedded into the state law. And this is just pushing it 1 degree further, and as a number of people said, you don't know where it's going to end. So I think that what has to come out of this meeting is not simply that we're going to call our representatives to stop it, but that if it goes through, we got to have something to do about it, because that's what's probably going to happen. You folks who are the municipal leaders have to figure out some way that you're going to organize your townships to say we're not going to accept this. We are not going to accept this doctrine of preemption, even if the state legislature imposes it on us. And I would just say one little constitutional point on this, which is a narrow one, but it could be used in this situation, which is the Pennsylvania Constitution gives all of us a right to clean water and clean air. And that right supersedes, as a constitutional matter, anything that the legislature does. And from that perspective, in my opinion, this bill is unconstitutional in taking away the power of the people of this state in their own municipalities from regulating their own zoning, their own water, their own residential ability to control this. But apart from that particular theory, I think the broader problem is how are we going to fight this doctrine of preemption, which in this state has wreaked havoc in a whole number of areas, this just being one of them. And this now, they're taking it and they're moving it to the next step, and where it's going to end, as people have said, we don't know. But I think we've got to confront that directly.
Who's going to form a coalition, and who's going to head it up with a plan of what we do? Anyone?